Welcome to Board Gamers Anonymous special interview episode, Gen Con 2018. We'd like to thank all our Patreon backers for helping us bring you an ad-free episode.
You're listening to a proud member of the Dice Tower Network, dedicated to bringing podcasters together for the greater good of gaming. It's sort of like Voltron, but with better lip syncing. Find out more at dicetowernetwork.com.
Welcome to Board Gamers Anonymous, the podcast of board gamers and the insane fun we have at Gen Con 2018. This is Chris, and these are the interviews that we took during our trip to Gen Con 2018. We had an absolutely great time there speaking to all the publishers, designers, artists, and gamers at the convention, and we wanted to bring you some first-hand accounts of the conversations we had there. So we are talking to Ares Games, AEG, Bezier Games, Flying Frog Games, Navu Games, Adam's Apple Games, Keymaster Games. So take a listen as we talk about the hottest acquisition disorders and at the tables that'll be coming to your table real soon. Here we are talking to Jim from Ares Games at Gen Con 2018. Jim is taking us through Battlestar Galactica and all the new upgrades to the flight path system. Then we talk about tripods and triplanes, Master of the Galaxy, Sword and Sorcery and its expansions, and Lord of the Rings and the future for the franchise. Let's check it out.
This is Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
So the first one, we're doing demos here. We've got some of the production samples, so it's not final production yet, but these are some of the first pieces off the mold. This is based on the Wings of Glory rule set. So the idea that movement is simultaneous, combat is simultaneous. Each ship is unique, or each StarCraft or each plane is unique, so that you really get a sense of you're flying something different. Battlestar Galactica is based on the reboot of the TV show, but then we also have the rights to do the original TV show as well. So we're able to actually bring a whole lot of the intellectual property to the game table. Okay. We're doing an actual 3D space game, so you're actually working in a couple of different levels. You're actually having to deal with kinetic energy and momentum, and so one of the really cool things about it is if you look at one of the ships, if you look at here, that the bases actually rotate, so you can actually be moving in one direction, moving this way, but actually firing this way. And then when you kick in the jets, you can do kind of sharp turns, but then you have to deal with things like drift. So it really provides a space combat experience that we've not really had a lot of that's a real space combat. We've had basically airplanes in space, sure, as opposed to real space. And then this is the control panel. So one of the things that we've done is we've tried to simplify how a player sets up their move, what they're doing, whether they're going to raise elevation or go lower, how they're going to rotate, their speed, and then they can also take a look at their momentum. And so momentum is something you have to track. You can't go in game terms have a momentum of 6 and then just stop on a dime. You're going to keep moving. So how you manage that and how you manage the tactical situation is a core component of the game. So this should come out around Thanksgiving time. Okay. So at approximately the same time, this is tripods and triplanes. So we've talked about this, I think, a little bit before. So we've got the final version of the tripods in the display case. But at the end of the day, this is also probably going to come out about the same time, so around Thanksgiving time. We're hoping to debut both of these at PAX Unplugged and actually have them for sale there at that category. So those are the kind of the two new things we've got right now. We finally got our copies in of Master of the Galaxy.
Great.
Masters of the Galaxy is a classic 4X game. So you're actually playing an alien race. It's up to 4 players. Sure. You're trying to take control of the galaxy. Each race is different, and you get different benefits and hindrances that you have. Then you can actually have a couple different ways to win. So it is a resource placement game. Sure. So one of the things that you're trying to do is as you start, you've got a couple of, they're called agendas. When you complete agendas, they let you do things like gather cards or gather more resources, things like that. So as you complete agendas, you gather resources, more resources let you complete bigger agendas, let you expand your reach, so you're sort of stair-stepping your way up. You're building pathways to other solar systems, colonizing planets, setting up bases, and you can win like a classic 4X game. You can build your tech tree up, you can try to exterminate the other population, you can win culturally, and so you can do the things that you would expect. It's a really straightforward game to understand and learn, so we can teach people the game and play a whole game in under an hour.
Wow.
If you get a bunch of people who are really competitive and really cutthroat and you're sort of all sort of even then the game can be done in 90 minutes. So really, really fast and a really fun experience. Got some of the new stuff for Sword and Sorcery as well here at the show. So we had most of this stuff we had at Origins, but we now have Samara and Krogan, I think it is, Krogan. And so 2 new character packs for Sword and Sorcery. So we're actually now trying to make available for retail some of the packs that we had for the Kickstarter that not everybody was able to take advantage of. So we're starting to roll those out, and hopefully we'll be able to get all the Kickstarter guys out on the market for those. So.
Great. And you have Waterloo is out?
Right. So Waterloo is through our partnership with a firm called Pendragon.
Yes.
So Waterloo's been out for a while in Europe, particularly the Italian version, and so we worked with them to translate it into English, and so that Waterloo just came out, and also Pendragon's game Hexmonia, which is a little bit different game. We just got it at the show, so I've not even opened the box yet.
Okay.
So it is brand spanking new. Still smells like cargo container, which is a nice, like new car smell. That's a good thing, right? So, and then
is there talk about another possible game or expansion in the Lord of the Rings kind of trilogy? Like you have Hunt for the War of the Rings been out for quite some time, then 5 Armies came out. Hunt for the Ring, are we going to still see more titles?
Yeah, so one of the things that's nice about Ares is they've got a very strong relationship with the licensing firm that handles not the movie property, but the literary property.
Yes.
And so the licenses, they're very willing to do good products that expand, just like a good licensing partner was.
Sure.
We want people to understand the property, and so they're a really good crew to work with. We have actually 2 things in the works for War of the Rings, Lord of the Rings, but I'm not at liberty to talk about them yet. Okay.
I know the Amazon's going to be having their series, so it's probably revive a lot of the fan base to look for more of that product.
We hope to ride the wave. It's
That's
always
excellent.
it's always a good thing. So War of the Ring is back in stock. We're trying now for a long time. War of the Ring is what most people know us for. War of the Ring and Wings of Glory.
Yes.
And so that property will make a run, and it sells out in 30 days. And we were supposed to have 6 months worth of product, and it sells out so fast. So we're having a hard time. I don't want to say gauging the interest, but the interest always surprises us. And so we talk to retailers, we talk to distributors about, well, how much do you want? We produce so that we have enough to last, and it never lasts. So hopefully we've got enough to go through the Christmas season at least, and then we can get it back on press and keep it available for folks.
Okay. Is it possible we might, if Master of the Galaxy does well, we could see expansions for that as well?
Master of the Galaxy is actually produced by a Russian design team called Agrology, and so it's really up to them to see, as a design firm, whether they would like to see something or like to do something a little bit different or something more, or whether they're moving on to the next game. Really, we're going to hopefully see what the market tells us. It has a ton of potential to expand with races and making it 6-player and things like that. So, but I don't know whether that's in the works or not. I can tell you one thing that's in the work. We saw a mock-up of the next release of Monsters vs. Heroes, which is Cthulhu-based. Monsters vs. Heroes is sold in 2 half decks, is kind of how we term it. So the first Monsters and Heroes was London After Midnight and Sherlock in Hell, so very thematic in regard to those two kind of themes. But the next set is going to be Cthulhu based, and it will be Mountains of Madness and think Dunwich Orbit. Don't quote me on the second one.
Sure.
So looks really cool. The art style is similar, but it really is quite a different striking color palette. And so the nice thing about Monsters vs. Heroes, each half deck plays 4 people. So if you have 2 half decks, you can mix and match the different ones and play as large really as you want to play. 4-player games, put 2 decks together, play a little bit longer game, and so each half deck is very thematic in terms of gameplay. So you've got some decks that manipulate the discard, some that manipulate the cards that are in front of you, some manipulate your hand. So depending on which of the half decks you play, you're going to get a very different tactical experience with the cards.
Okay. Well, for Battlestar Galactica, the Flight Pass system, will we see organized play for that at some point?
We hope to, yes. So we've been working with our organized play component. So right now what we do is Aries, we try to 6 to 8 times a year we try to do a demo night. So what we do is we take our mailing list for retailers and we say we're going to do a demo. We ask that we'll give you all the stuff for the demo, and so we'll then please just run the demo over the course of this 14-day period. Just run demos in your store, and then you get to keep everything as a retail owner and just have it for your retail library. I would be surprised if we don't do Battlestar Galactica, maybe right before Christmas, but we haven't firmed up the last half of the year about what we're actually going to do in terms of demo spaces and events.
Obviously, the tripods and Battlestar Galactica is a big undertaking.
Yes.
Is there any thoughts of other themes or genres undertaking the Flight Pass system? Is that in the works currently?
So the things that are in the work right now are new releases for World War I, World War II, and Sails of Glory. So I would look at all 3 of those sets to get some attention while the focus has been on these pieces, to shift back to the more historical pieces and do more there.
Great.
And so in 2019, that's our hope, is that we can finish up some work there and get those out probably the second half of 2019, maybe the summer. So,
well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Here we are talking to Todd from AEG Games, speaking about Smash Up's bigger, geekier box and its brand new expansion, Oops, You Did It Again, Mystic Vale Conclave Big Box, and its new expansion, Twilight Garden, The Captain is Dead Episode 2, Lockdown, Thunderstone Quest, and Edge of Darkness. Take a listen.
So we have the bigger, geekier box, which is our new collector box. Our prior one, people were reporting that if they sleeve their decks, it was beginning to get full. And so we wanted to create one that had even more space for upcoming expansions, so they could keep going. It has a removable tray that holds all the tokens, the power tokens that you use while playing, and we made a fully comprehensive rule book that covers everything from the base game all the way up through the latest release, Oops, You Did It Again, which has a couple of new rules in it that we went ahead and put into the comprehensive rule book to make sure that it was covering the whole thing.
So the new box would be able to hold the new rule book. It says, I think I saw online, it has space for the tokens. There's a lot of tokens when you buy all the sets.
Yes, there were a lot of tokens. I mean, my Ziploc bag was getting really, really full. So we made little wells that will hold them all. And it actually has a few extra wells for the next several years of expansions as well.
So is the general thought or consensus keep all the chits? Or is there an idea of like...
I imagine there's a point where you reach, maximum chit need, but for right now, I've just hold on to them all because I don't really worry about. I don't want to do that count. I haven't done the math on that one yet. So.
I don't think you would literally need another big geeky box to hold just all the chits.
All the chits.
The big geeky chit box.
Yeah.
I know, because I don't want to throw any of them away.
Right.
But
because I could need them, but you never know, right? Maybe there'll be a faction that just throws chits on the table.
Eventually, you'll have to have premium chits as just far as or kind of like a dial, like almost like the hero clicks, where it's this one, it's that one.
Keep up with the count.
Yeah. Okay. There's a faction in there, right, from one of the.
Yes. So the original Geeky box had the Geeks faction.
Yes.
And because we're going to the bigger, geekier box now, we moved them into it so that people who just get the bigger, geekier box will also be able to get the Geeks.
Okay.
And last summer we had an event kit that had the Smash Up All Stars faction, and we put them into the box. So people who weren't able to play in those events, the special events last year, have a chance to get them now. which was always sort of our plan. It wasn't that we were ever going to say, like, no, you can't ever get them if you don't come to the event. It's just there's going to be a period of time where people who got to the event have them, and then you can get them later, and they can get them by purchasing the bigger, geekier box now.
Okay.
So we have Oops, You Did It Again.
Yes.
That just came out. Those were chosen by the players. And the factions that come in it are the Vikings, Samurai, Cowboys, and Ancient Egyptians.
Okay.
It took me just a moment. I had to go through the mechanics and remember who was who. Yes, Ancient Egyptians are in there too. It introduces 2 slightly new mechanics, no new card types, but it does introduce 2 new mechanics where the Egyptians focus on burying cards, which is basically playing them face down to have an effect later when you flip them over.
Sure.
And then the Cowboys and the Samurai both use dueling, which is where one minion can call out another minion in a duel. You both get to play 1 action card for whatever effect it does, which could be a power boost. And then the minion with the higher power defeats the other one, and it's gone from the base. So basically it's a kill action, but you can also get a free action play out of it. Okay. Which, if you play an action that affects all your minions, then it affects all your other minions too.
Sure.
So it's a way to maybe get extra actions out on the board too.
Is there any way, do you get feedback, or do you look for feedback about which faction or which combination is people's favorite?
Yeah, we generally keep our ear to the ground on that, and we try to watch for which ones get played more and more. We know, for instance, that even all the way back to the first set, the zombies still get a ton of play among people.
Yeah.
And there are some people who just don't play zombies anymore, but it's just various choices like that. But we always keep our ear to the ground, and we know that we do have some current groups that actually work to make those groups not as strong anymore. Like they have effects that could diminish the zombies' value and things like that. Not specifically targeting them. We never try to silver bullet anything.
Sure.
But it would, maybe be able to affect them and bring the balance a little more.
And now you have a new, bigger box to hold all of Mystic Vale.
We do. It's called Mystic Vale Conclave, and it is a big box to hold your Mystic Vale collection. It also it gives you 2 additional starter decks so that now you can play up to 5 or 6 players instead of just 4 players. And it introduces a new mechanic called the Light mechanic, which is like night and day. Twilight, I think, was the mechanic they called it. But basically, it's a system where it will allow 2 players to take their turns at the same time. So if you're playing 4 players, instead of having to wait for each person to take their turn, players A and C can take their turn at the same time, and then players B and D can take their turn at the same time.
Interesting.
And it moves the game along a little quicker that way, based on the whether it's day or night. And we thought that since we were also now taking the player count up by 2, that might be a good thing to introduce at that point to keep the downtime to as minimal as possible.
Okay. And you also have a new expansion for The Captain is Dead?
We do. It is. It's a standalone.
Sure.
So we call it a sequel because we're treating Captain's Dead like it's a TV show. And in this one, the crew found themselves getting a replacement captain after their last mission of rescuing the ship. And they did get a replacement captain, although they were immediately then captured by the aliens and thrown in prison. The aliens chose to execute the captain to send a message. So now, yet again, the captain is dead. The crew has to escape the prison, hotwire an alien ship, and get away. It's actually quite a bit different from the original one in that in the original game, you had your ship and you could lose systems as the ship got damaged. In this one, you have access to nothing because you're on the alien prison, and you have to hack into their systems to try to gain control and get new actions and things like that. There's patrols of aliens moving about the prison. There's like the lieutenant and slicer aliens who will come in and cut you out of systems that you've gotten into. And the AIM uses a system we call the concealment level, where the more you keep doing, the more notice they begin taking. And if concealment ever gets to 0, then they just go to shoot to kill. So if you encounter them after that, and throughout the game, if they encounter you, they'll just bop you on the head and put you back in the jail. But at a certain point, they get fed up with it and they'll start killing you. So you have to try to escape before that happens.
Okay. How about Edge of Darkness? You had the Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. We had a successful Kickstarter for Edge of Darkness. It's currently at the factory in production right now. It'll be shipping out to people. It'll probably be next year, early next year, before people receive their copies. Hopefully sooner than that. But right now it's still in that stage, and we'll be making plans for what we're going to do with it going forward after that. We know that we are going to do things with it because it was such a successful Kickstarter for us.
Sure.
But we have not decided exactly what direction those are going to take.
Okay. Will we see a full production copy maybe at PAX Unplugged?
Possibly. Okay. I'd love to have one by then, but we'll see if we're able to.
Sure.
So, And then we also have one game that we are previewing over on the other side.
Yeah.
It's coming out this November. It's called Scorpius Freighter.
Okay.
In Scorpius Freighter, you are a captain of a smuggling vessel, bringing goods in and out of the Scorpius star cluster, where the government has a very iron-fisted control of what goes on in there. So you're trying to bring goods and black market things to the people who want them. What's interesting is there are 3 ships on the board that orbit 3 planets. And around those orbits are your actions that you can take, such as getting contracts, upgrading your ships, getting new crew, things like that. But all of us move those ships. So for instance, if I want to upgrade my crew, I have to slide it around to the crew action. If you then decide you want a contract, you could pick one that has a contract and slide it around. Once a ship makes a complete orbit around a planet, it gets a bit of cargo put on it.
Sure.
I like to describe that as the heat. Everyone's drawing too much attention to what's going on.
Okay.
And once a ship gets full of cargo, the game's over because the government has noticed what's happening and they clamp down on everything. So you try to score as much as you can before that happens, but you are all advancing it toward that end. So I've sort of described it to people as a push everyone's luck game is the way it plays.
Nice. Thunderstone Quest.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
Thunderstone
please.
Quest. We are smack in the middle of our second Kickstarter for it.
Great,
The first
yeah.
one was a huge success. We decided to go back. We also introduced what we call Back to the Dungeon in this one, where we have quests and additional content that will make it a solo game and a co-op game.
Okay.
And they're a lot of fun. You have to defend the city. We call it barricades mode because there's actual barricade punch outs that you can put on the village to like build up walls to try to stop the monsters coming through. And it's already been a huge success for us. It funded extremely quickly. We're really excited about it. And anybody who did not take part in the first Thunderstone Kickstarter can back it. They'll get everything that was unlocked from the first one and the new content.
Great.
And people who did back it in the first one can come and just back the new content at a lesser price, so they don't have to. We're not expecting you to buy the whole game over again, but you can just get the new content as well.
And when's the release time for that one?
So this one will complete its Kickstarter on the 17th of this month.
Okay.
Will be the final day, and we're looking to have it out by early next year.
Are we going to see organized play for that?
I'm not sure of that yet.
Okay.
I've got to talk to the designer about that. But right now, it's just been. We're still figuring out its future. We know we have a lot of stuff planned, and we have a lot of expansions and new quests planned, but
Sure.
we're deciding how it's going to go. We have said we are going to bring the game to retail before the end of this year. We won't necessarily have all the new stuff from the new Kickstarter, obviously, because that's still in development, but the original one will come to retail very soon.
Well, Todd, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
I'm at Gen Con 2018, and here I am speaking to Ted Alspach of Bezier Games about his brand new game, Ultimate Werewolf Legacy, which he co-designed with Rob Davio. Take a listen to the interview and try to figure out which one of us is the werewolf.
Werewolf Legacy.
All right, so in Ultimate Werewolf Legacy, you actually are set up to play 16 games of Werewolf. And this is the kind of the long-form Werewolf with a moderator, where you have, in this case, 8 to 15 players, plus one player who's a moderator. And you're going to go through each of these games, and as you go through the games, depending on who wins or loses, or decisions that the players make, things will change in future games. And you have to have 8 people minimum. 8 people plus a moderator, so really 9 total people in order to be able to play. Not only will you change what basically the scope of all future games, but you're also going to change the abilities of the individual players. So there are these character cards, and each player will have one of these, and if they achieve certain goals or do something special, they may get a title, and that title gives them a super special power that they can use from then on the rest of the campaign. Okay. And players can have multiple titles and different things, so the game itself changes, the players' abilities change, all the way through, and you end up playing about 25% of the content of the game because there's so many different branches you can go into. And so pretty much no 2 games are going to be about the same. They're all going to be different somehow because of all the different choices people are making. So you can actually replay it, and we have a replay pack available, which is basically a diary and those character cards. So you can just get that, and you have all the other components you can still use again, and you can play through it multiple times that way. So that's the basic idea. But it comes with this amazing diary, which is 100 pages of moderator guides, stickers, all sorts of cool stuff in there. The nice thing about this is, we just have to basically make a new version of this diary, with the new scenarios. And these are the scenarios that we thought were best for this. There's
Sure.
other things we've talked about that we've dropped for various reasons that could make it in the future.
Okay.
For follow-ups. Kind of like with Pandemic Season 1, Season 2.
Sure.
Same basic game, but obviously Season 2 is a big departure from Season 1 in terms of the scope and what actually is taking place.
Will we eventually see a Eric Summer or some kind of app kind of jump in here?
We have an app. It doesn't need a narrator like Eric
Okay.
for it. We have an app that's basically a timer to help the moderator
Sure.
move things along so the games don't take too long. That's usually one of the complaints that anyone has with a werewolf type of game is it can go on and on and on,
Yeah,
just
yes.
little chat.
Sure.
So we recommend strongly that people use a timer, and it keeps the games to about an hour 10 at the most, even with a full 16 players.
So the book, I guess we're looking at these cards?
Yeah, the character cards.
Anything else in the...
No, that's the only things you get in the replay pack because those are the only things that actually are modified.
Okay.
This is not a destructible game. You don't tear up cards, you don't get rid of anything. But you get a lot of things you can reuse. So some roll cards will never enter the game.
Sure.
Because they just weren't required for your particular scenarios. When you play through again, they might. But you always have those cards available.
Generally, I know it'll be different for each game. How long each session? How long total have you envisioned this to play out?
So, each game, like I said, it's probably between an hour and hour 10.
Okay.
It depends on the group and if you're using a timer or not. But there's 16 games total.
Okay.
So, 16 to 20 hours,
Okay.
for the most part invested. The player who's the moderator is going to invest a little bit more time because they're going to be going through, they're going to prepare a little bit ahead of time, put some stickers in, because of the results of previous games, etc.
Sure.
But overall, about 20 hours.
20 hours. Wow, that's a good value.
Yeah.
All right, Ted, thank you so much.
Definitely.
It's Gen Con 2018 and BJ is talking to Flying Frog Productions. 2 new expansions coming out for Shadows of Brimstone. Their big blockbuster games, including Blasted Waste and their upcoming Kickstarter, Forbidden Fortress. Not to mention a 10th anniversary release of Touch of Evil, totally updated and revised for those big fans out there. Here's the interview.
All right, we're here with Jack from Flying Frog Team. Jack, why don't you tell us what's coming out for Flying Frog?
This September, we actually have Blasted Wastes. It's a deluxe Otherworld for Shadows of Brimstone, and this is by far the biggest and best of all of the Otherworld expansion packs. So it has 4 new enemy types that have new miniatures and new stats, all that stuff. All representing, guys from the Blasted Wastes. Well, actually, not all. Most of them are aliens from the Blasted Waste. This acidic kind of very deadly and dangerous planet, sulfurous, rocky world with acid pools, and everything is very inhospitable. But these creatures and aliens have eked out a living there, and a living like they work. No, eked out some, an existence there, that kind of thing. And your cowboys end up coming through a portal and facing off against these alien inhabitants, and they've got this whole world that feels like post-apocalyptic. Mad Max-ish, So there's a barter town in there that you guys can visit. There's their own scavenge deck, their own loot deck, because none of that stuff doesn't really apply to such a strange and alien world. And then obviously a bunch of artifacts and encounters and a whole new map tile set for that. And the flip side of the map tiles usually will be mine, of course. But for this one, we thought, well, what if we actually explore another Earth tile set and we go outside of the mines? So we put together a set of tiles exclusive for this Blasted Waste that are the canyons. And so it's not in the mines underground, it's actually outdoors in these canyons. And when I said earlier, not all the new enemies are these aliens, there's also a new set of enemies called the Ghost Warriors. And they're basically Native Americans that are obviously indigenous to Earth, and they're in the canyons. And they paint themselves with white and black body paint and are super deadly. And we wanted to, try to bring things back a little bit more into the cowboys and Indians, old school Old West. We always try to keep it grounded in the traditional Old West. And we've been doing so many aliens and demons and things. We wanted to circle back around and include some new stuff that's kind of traditional themed. So that's coming out this September. Okay. And then after that, we actually are coming out with our 3rd core set for Shadows of Brimstone. It's called Forbidden Fortress, and it launches. It should be in retail stores in mid-October. And this one is one that people have been really, really excited about. We did a Kickstarter for it a year and a half ago. And it's basically all the rules set and same world as Shadows of Brimstone, but instead of starting out with heroes from the Old West and expanding to other worlds, it starts out focusing on feudal Japan. And so instead of playing, a gunslinger and a preacher and a saloon girl, you're playing as a samurai or a traveling monk, a ninja assassin or a sorceress. And so you start in feudal Japan, and of course you're exploring temples and castles and that kind of thing. And we did, so that it has a different feel than the Old West. The Old West stuff, it's kind of confined mine passages and halls and openings. Instead, you're in Japan, you're in these temples, and it can actually open up into courtyards, and you can have big fights against ninjas or demons in a big castle courtyard with a giant statue of Buddha, And so we have some boards, map tiles that just dwarf the previous ones that we've done. So it really has a different kind of feel than the original Shadows of Brimstone. But it's all 100% compatible. It's completely interchangeable. You could have your Japanese heroes go to the Old West and all the other worlds, Blasted Waste, Derelict Ship, Cinder. You could have your Old West heroes go to feudal Japan. Or the new Forbidden Fortress Otherworld on the backside of Forbidden Fortress tiles is the Belly of the Beast, where you find yourself inside of an enormous creature so big you don't even know what it looks like because you're just on the inside. And so you're traveling through, esophaguses and down into the organs. And of course, it's filled with all manner of creepy, crawly organisms, bone eaters and tentacles, acidic tentacles and a gastral tyrant and flesh mites, all of these kind of, creepy crawlies that you might find inside of an enormous creature. So your Old West characters could, of course, come through to Japan or to the Belly of the Beast. You can even have mixed groups. So you could have, our adventuring party is a gunslinger, a saloon girl, a samurai, and a sorceress. And mix it up because they're crossing through, via the portals to different locations and different time periods. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and that should be in retail stores in October. Also, I'm sure that you guys have heard this year is the 10-year anniversary of A Touch of Evil, our second game that came out, and we're super excited about it, and we've been working on a new 10-year anniversary edition of A Touch of Evil, where we kind of go back, like we did with Last Night on Earth. Last year, we did a 10-year anniversary. We're going to do the same thing. It'll be a big one single print run, and that's all we're ever going to do, and then it goes away. So it's just kind of for the fans. It's not meant to replace A Touch of Evil. That's still, a popular seller and that kind of thing. We don't want to mess with that or mess anything up. We're not making a second edition. We're making a limited 10th anniversary kind of pimped out edition, right? And so it's one printing. It's going to be numbered. So on the back, there's a laser hologram sticker with the number of, what your number is, and that's it. The box is going to be big enough to hold the entire collection of A Touch of Evil. We're gonna go back and touch almost all the different pieces, revamp cards, make sure all of them have good colors and clarity. Over the years, doing different expansions, some of them it's like, oh well, that one, some of the pictures ended up a little bit too dark, or that one ended up a little bit more blue than we want. We're going to bring them all in line, so it's one definitive version, not just of the pictures, but also errata that's come out. We're going to change and update the cards. The soundtrack, we're not only remastering it, but actually recording new strings and new instruments. There's going to be new songs. We touch basically every piece of it, so it's kind of a new definitive version. For the rule book, it's going to be a collected works rule book where it has all of the rules from all of the expansions that have ever come out over the last 10 years, all put into one rule book and then reorganized so that it all fits together into one cohesive rule set with a nice index and a table of contents and all this easy for referencing and looking up, and also an expanded FAQ where we look at questions people have had after playing the game for a while over the years. Besides that, we're also going to collect up all of the web villains that we've released over time, and they're going to be available for the first time in print. So instead of cutting out your own counters and gluing them to cardboard and stuff, we're going to actually have die-cut counters for these web villains, and it's going to have lots of new content, pimped out miniatures for all of the different stuff. So, wounds and investigation. There's actually a miniature for the Spectral Horseman. It looks phenomenal. So you can now race through town, lopping off heads and that kind of thing. And there's new miniatures for each of the corner locations. So you actually have a big abandoned keep in the corner, or you have like the windmill or the old woods. All of those are going to have miniatures to help represent it. And again, it's meant to be kind of something for the fans to pimp it out like your ultimate version of the game. And then the town elders, they actually have little busts of each of the town elders, and they really came out great. We're actually going to do, here at Gen Con, we're going to do a little preview of it. We're going to show them off later today. So if you're around, you can check that out. So yeah, A Touch of Evil 10, we're working really hard to try to get it out by the end of the year because, of course, this is the 10-year anniversary. Your listeners might also be asking themselves, what about those Fortune and Glory expansions you guys talked about? Those we're still shooting right now because we ended up behind a little bit on the Forbidden Fortress stuff. That pushed A Touch of Evil 10 and back a little bit, and also Fortune and Glory. So those may actually slip to a release in maybe Q1 of next year. But the two Fortune and Glory expansions are called Temples and Treasures and Lair of the Spider Queen. And those are both brand new expansions for Fortune and Glory, the first new expansions in a few years, and people have been really clamoring for it. I mean, it's Indiana Jones style pulp adventure. Everybody loves it, and they've been, that's the type of game that's so expandable because there's so many ways you can go with it. And I'm really excited with how this is coming together. Lair of the Spider Queen introduces a new vile organization, the Cult of the Spider Queen. It has 3 new villains for it, and then all of their cultist minions. And so it's going to have lots of new dangers and everything associated with a brand new vile organization. Temples and Treasures, the other one, that of course focuses on expanding temples and treasures. It seems obvious. But the temples, there's going to be a new temple deck. It really is kind of a deeper dive. So instead of just, I go to a temple, it's worth this much treasure. Now instead there's different, types of things. You're going through the temple. It expands on that experience. But it also has some new villains. They're not organized with a specific vile organization. There's an Amazon Queen and her Amazon warriors. And then there's a witch doctor and his tribal warriors. Sure. So we try to, every time we do this, a new expansion, we're like, how much can we put in here? What else can we fit? And is there room on the mold? Is there room on the die cut counter sheet? We're constantly trying to just fill it with as much stuff, because every single one of these games or expansions we do, it's like an opportunity, we're still those gamers that it's like, the dream is to make our own game. And so even though we've been doing this for 11 years now, every single time we don't take it for granted. It's like, what more can we do? What can we add? What would be the most fun? And we're trying to fill it up. We always talk about the bag of chips. We don't want any of our games to feel like a bag of potato chips where you open it up and it's all air, and at the bottom there's just a few components, So we're gamers ourselves, and it's really important to us to make the kind of games that we're proud of, that we love to play, and we want our fans of our games to have the experience that we have, or that we want. If you buy a game, you want it to be chock full of good stuff. We want really awesome minis, and we want lots of bits and hours and hours of replayability and years of fun. Social stuff, heavy theme, soundtracks, all of it. We're all about it. Yes. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Alex. That's from Flying Frog Productions.
All right, thanks a lot.
It's Gen Con 2018, and BGA's talking to Seth from Navu Games about The Reckoners, a cooperative board game based upon the books by Brandon Sanderson, where you must defend the city of New Cargo and defeat Steelheart. Here we go.
So why don't you tell me about Reckoners?
Yeah, The Reckoners is a big box cooperative game for 1 to 6 players, and it takes about 90 minutes. Okay. The goal of the game is to defeat Steelheart, who is a big bad super villain. Okay? He rules over the city of New Cargo, which is Chicago in this post-apocalyptic world, and the Reckoners are a group of operatives who have sprung up to defeat this these powerful supervillains like Steelheart. So they will be trying to save the city of New Cago before Steelheart and all of his epics destroy it, and at the same time assassinate Steelheart. So they win if they manage to do that before the city gets reduced to 0 population.
I know that we're talking about the book series here, so are we also talking about future releases and expansions, possibly?
Yeah, we hope so. So far, the reception's been extremely great. We've sold out on our first day here at Gen Con.
Great.
Thank you. So we have pre-orders available on our website, but frankly, our first print run's going extremely fast, so we have a lot of interest. We're really working to figure out exactly what our next steps are going to be as far as a reprint and expansions, but we're really excited to do more content based on the books in the future.
Okay. Does this take any liberties? Does it take it in a different direction than the book series? Could we see any kind of alternate content? Like, will you find something new in here that you didn't find in the book series?
Yeah, so Brandon actually gave us some exclusive content for the board game. So we have about a 60-page booklet that comes inside of the boxes for the Kickstarter editions. And so that is available for fans to discover if they purchase the game. Okay. But the game itself tries to avoid any spoilers that are inside of the book. So fans who haven't read the series yet but play the game, you won't notice anything that you wouldn't otherwise get if you read the books. Okay. But there is for fans of the series, there is a couple of things in there to just be aware of, I suppose. But I guess you'll notice a bunch of interesting little intricacies about the books or equipment and little hidden nuggets in the game's design that will that hopefully you'll appreciate.
Okay. So the Kickstarter wrapped up.
Yep.
If you want to pick this up, where should we go?
You should go to nabugames.com and click on the pre-order banner that's there and try to get a pre-order before it sells out.
Okay. And is there any online resources as far as walkthrough, playthroughs, where you recommend to go and check it out if people want to see the game in action?
Yes, we have multiple playthroughs on our website as well where you're pre-ordering the game, so you can watch them there.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Gen Con 2018 and BJ is sitting down with Adam Apple's Games, talking about their recent success on Kickstarter with Sword Crafters the board game. I got a chance to sit down with Adam and talk about the game and its great success.
First off, this is a game called Sword Crafters. You are building a 3-dimensional sword that you can hold as you play. At the end of the game, you're comparing your sword versus the opponents at the table. You're comparing it on 3 things. The longest sword gets 6 points. A sword that has quality or gems of matching color type on the same side, you get 2 points per gem. All right? You score that for every side, so you're always trying to piece things together correctly. All right?
Sure.
The third thing you score is sword magic. That is the combination of 2 different types of gems, and the most of that combination gets 8. Second most 4, third most 3. So that's kind of the rules. I go through that because it's such a physical and visual game that it really helps to understand what you're doing, what you're trying to create. So, how do you play the game, though? Right?
Yes.
Each round, and there's 6 rounds of the game. Each round, we're going to create a 4x4 grid of tiles.
Okay.
On your turn, you can make a vertical slice or a horizontal slice in all the tiles. All right.
Yes.
Each player does that. So here's my slice. This gentleman makes a slice here, a slice here, and another slice here. All right, so that's a 4-player game. Now it's back to the first player's turn.
Yes.
First player gets to choose all of one of the groups and craft them into their sword. So what does that look like, and why do I care? Right? I have 2 red, purple, and orange. Okay, so where can I fulfill that quality match best? So here's red and orange, red and purple. I'm gonna go red and purple here. There are also 2 blues here, and blues this game are going to be valuable because of the sword magic. Okay, and so once you grab a sword tile, you craft it in your sword just like that. See how I extended the quality run on the sword?
Yes.
So now you'll notice I'm crafting a blue into the sword, but that doesn't help my quality. Good thing I have a junk side, so I'm able to put that there and not break my quality. But now I have to break quality here, so I can't hold this back and wait. I have to put it in the sword. So my decisions had ramifications in this situation. That's my turn. Someone else grabs a group of tiles, crafts in their sword. After the last player grabs a group of tiles, we set up a new grid, and we play another round. So the game is played over 6 rounds. The winner is the best blade at the end of the round, or at the end of the game. Now, there is one special tile in the grid of tiles. We have what is called the forge tile. If you draft the group of tiles with the forge in it, you are going to be the first player next round. So you have first to cut, first to select. So that turn order is powerful, right? And that will be rotating and bouncing around over the course of the game. If you're the last player of the game, you kind of have a bad turn order position. Your job is to to cut that first player down to size and make sure that they're not going to get a valuable pick with that first player tile.
Okay.
Yep. That's the original game. 30 minutes, 1 to 5 players, and plays ages 6 and up. So it's a ton of fun.
Sure.
And even if you lose, you end the game with this awesome sword. You're going to be taking sword selfies. Yeah, so
Can't wait to take pictures with this. This is great.
It's super cool.
Does it ever get into it? Is there?
It does. So we have what I just explained to you is the base game of
Sure.
Sword Crafters. We're going to be delivering that to the hobby retail in September.
Okay.
For $35.
Great.
But what we have today, what we're looking at, is actually the expanded edition. So
Great.
this includes 3 different modules to the game. First module is sword tips. If you satisfy this goal on the sword tip, 2 plus blue gems, 3 plus purple gems, then you're going to place a tip on and you're going to score the victory point bonus on the sword tip.
Okay.
All right? The second thing about the game is we have sword mastery. So imagine that the monsters of the kingdom are getting ready to attack, danger is
Sure.
imminent. You are trying to prepare your blade to be fitted against the goblins, for instance. If you can craft a green, blue in your sword, you may claim this card, and your sword is ready to go against the goblins, right? The third module, and these modules can be added, subtracted, and compounded as well, so you can play with all of them if you want for a really meaty and intense sword crafting game. But third module is the sword relics. There are 8 types of sword relics. They impact scoring and add special actions to the game. And they go into the grid, and so they follow all the cut and slice selection rules already in place with the sword tiles.
Okay.
So we place 4 different tiles out. We cut, slice, select. You may get some relics, you may not, but that impacts your decisions. This is one of my favorite ones. I'm going to talk about this right now. The Sword of Might. You get +1 victory points for every blue sword tile in your sword, and -1 for every yellow. So it could be great. It could be poison. And that's an example of kind of the relics of the game, or the expanded edition. So, it's a ton to offer here. And we also have a solo mode as well. You want to hear about that?
Yes, please.
Just like the original game, you're setting up a grid of sword tiles.
Sure.
You are laying out 1 through 4 opponents based on these solo mode cards. So the more sword opponents you lay out, the harder it's going to get for you. These opponents have a defined quality and defined sword length, but they also have a defined mix of gems.
Okay.
All right. Now, on your turn, you're going to be flipping up the backside of these opponents. All right. So there's 10 of these opponents in the game. The backside is a cut plan. All right. So this solo mode comes up, this card, and that means I have to cut vertical, vertical, horizontal, horizontal. So in the grid of tiles, here's what it would look like. This. We do vertical, right? Let's say vertical, right? And then let's say horizontal and horizontal. So now I can take these 4 and craft them in my sword. So it's kind of a puzzle about how do I get to the tiles that I want to get to.
Sure.
And at the end of the game, I'm comparing my sword against the 3 or however many opponent cards I flipped up.
Yeah.
So the solo mode takes 10 to 15 minutes. It's really an interesting puzzle.
Okay.
It scales in challenge, which is a lot of fun because you can have more opponents. And it's fun. It's just a fun little puzzle.
Absolutely. Wow. Fantastic. So you could really seed the game for the player and make it a little heavier, a little lighter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's excellent.
And it's a great way. I mean, it's kind of how I learn games when I'm getting ready to teach them. So
Yeah.
I'll always go through the solo mode and learn the content, and you really get a flavor for the mechanics, and then it's so much easier to teach it at that point too.
And it's ironically, I cut, you choose kind of thing.
I know.
With the sword.
We think we have the edgiest game on the market. So see what I did there?
That was a cutting retort. I like that a lot.
All right, let's keep going.
We'll be here all week, people.
We'll be here all week.
And this is coming out. You said when this hits retail, will we see expansions for this?
Yep. So right now we don't have any expansions besides the expanded edition designed and ready to publish, but we've had an awesome gaming convention, and we are just about sold out of the game. So people are loving the game. People are loving it. There's a lot of hype around it, and this is going to be our first priority to start expanding and developing this concept even further. Right. So. The mind is racing with what else we can do with Sword Crafters.
All right, Adam, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's Gen Con 2018, and BGA is sitting down with Keymaster Games, speaking to Maddox about 3 games that they recently had released: Campy Creatures, Caper, and Space Park. Take a listen.
Hi, Max. I want you to take us through your games here. What do we have?
Yeah, so we got Campy Creatures here. Campy Creatures is a game where you're a mad scientist and you're trying to capture mortals for your experiments, of course.
Okay.
But you don't want to do the dirty work, so you're going to send out your hand of creatures to do that for you.
Okay.
So every turn, some mortals are going to come out, depending on the number of players. That's different. And then everybody starts with the same hand of creatures. Everybody's going to choose a creature, play it face down, and then reveal what they chose. The kicker here, though, is whoever played the higher number creature is going to get first pick of the mortals that are out. Next highest gets next pick, and so forth. But abilities can kind of throw things into the mix, allow you to capture 2 mortals maybe, or it might allow you to force another player to discard a creature. Pretty simple, straightforward, like light bluffing deduction, love letter-esque game, but it's for that like casual gamer crowd, but gamers will love it of just like starting game nights with it. They've often said that they love opening game nights with it. So yeah, it's a 30-minute style game, 2 to 5 players. Yeah, that's Campy.
Who's the artist for that?
Artist is Josh Emmerich.
Amazing. I really love the artwork.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay. Tell us about Space Park.
Space Park, yeah. So in Space Park, you are a galactic explorer. You're going to be going to different parks across the galaxy. We were like, what if there were national parks in space?
Nice.
And so as an explorer, you're going to, of course, ride some rockets. So there are going to be 3 rockets across these different places that are out on the board.
Okay.
You can only visit a place with a rocket on it during your turn. The rocket, once you visit that place, you're going to take its action, then it's going to move to the next open destination clockwise.
Okay.
So you're thinking about where do you want to go, but what actions are you giving to the other players? To do that, you're collecting crystals and doing other things in order to complete space badges that can give you points and abilities. The player with the most explorer points at the end of the game is going to win. And each place has its own unique kind of action that you can take it to help you further toward that goal.
Excellent. And Caper?
Caper is a 2-player game.
Okay.
In it, you are a mastermind thief, and you're going to be hiring a crew of thieves to go to different parts of town. There'll be 3 different locations out each game, different each game. And then from there, you're going to be giving your thieves different gear cards in order to try to win those locations. So the kicker here, though, is that in it, it's drafting. One player will play a card, then another player will play a card, and then you're going to exchange hands. Of course, because if you don't hire those guys, then they're going to go to the other mastermind and see if they'll hire them.
Okay.
So as you're playing cards, you're thinking about what do you need, but also what are you giving your opponent. And then from there, at the it's kind of like a point salad at the end. There's a lot of way to score points. So whoever won those locations, you'll score those. And then your thieves and gear can also give you some points. So you're going to tally all those up, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. It's a 30-minute game, but it feels like a whole bunch of game goes down in those 30 minutes.
That's 3 excellent games. It really diverse and, like you said, interesting, dynamic kind of gameplay. I really love this.
Thank you so much.
All right, so that's everything from Keymaster Games. So
appreciate it.
All right, so that's everything from our special interview episode, Gen Con 2018. But that's not the end of our coverage. Stay with Board Gamers Anonymous for continuing coverage of the games that hit the table at Gen Con 2018. And every night is game night for more interviews from the great designers. Until next time, this is Chris, and this was Gen Con 2018 at the table.